This is Valini Naber from TC51. Welcome to this podcast on domestic violence. I have my co-host Shaman with me, and today we have a very special guest with us, that is Shravya S. Shaikar, that is an advocate and a guest faculty at JSS Law College. Hello ma'am, thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming on.
Today we are going to be discussing about domestic violence and gender-based violence that is widely prevalent in India. How would you define domestic violence, ma'am?
Domestic violence is crime within the house, basically, where you are, your loved ones, supposedly the loved ones are, committing a crime against you, stealing your chance away from peace, if not for anything. And a lot of, how do I put it, domestic violence it has been imposed as a culture in especially in our country. It is showing off of power rather than treating it as a crime. They consider it still to be a culture of domination, which is they consider it assertive. That is a mindset that has been come from decades of time, that they think it is right thing to do, which is basically crime within the house.
What are the ways or what are the kinds in which we can observe domestic violence in our society?
See, there are various kinds: emotional violence, there's sexual violence, there is physical violence. All of these are different kinds of abuse. Physical abuse, of course, physical violence is where they're physically, it is manhandling. Okay. Emotionally, it is more of a, how do you put it? It is more of emotionally, is you basically make that person think that they are wrong when they're abused. Yes, sexual abuse, you can take, it is one of, and especially young girls are prone to this. One is where you can also connect child marriage to this. It is still prevailing in our country. Yes. So from that way, they're abused violently, and also there is especially with these growing culture, sexual abuse. That also you lose that is also physical abuse. There also you're emotionally damaged. Yes. So it is all interconnected.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, what other forms are there except these? Emotional abuse, physical abuse, and sexual abuse?
Economic abuse. Okay, so then where married women, most of the time they would have been constrained from going anywhere. They would have been locked up, not allowed to work, not given funds also to function for every single thing. Especially if you take our Indian culture, okay, every single thing they have to ask from the husband. Even a small pin to anything, okay, they have to get it from the husband. So economically, as soon as they become economically weak, they won't have any source of income. In any way, they won't have any source of income. When that happens, what happens? When they're economically constrained, they can't leave the marriage. Even though they want to walk out of the marriage, they won't have it. Even if in case of physical abuse.
What do you think makes these men dominate themselves or attack these women?
See, one is it has been normalized in the culture. Cultural normalization, you can call it that. Okay, so there are sociological factors, that is the societal factors. Okay, so in that case, what happens? They would have been grown up like that. The behavioral factors, all of that. Their entire upbringing will be in such a state. The upbringing will be in such a way that they think that abusing or domestic violence is a very normal thing. For them, it is a regular thing that happens, and they think it is a right they are, imposing on the women, okay, on their wives in that case. Okay, they think it is a very normal thing. Okay, one is that their want for a male child.
Yes, ma'am.
Want for a male child, that is very high till date. There is, I think even very recently, I saw a gender, what, what do you call it? Prenatal gender checkups is there. No? They found a racket where they were, giving out the genders of the fetus. Okay, of fetus, and it was, for a monetary purpose they were doing it. A complete racket was happening. Very recently, they busted a center where they were giving out genders, aiding them in abortions.
So these are
So there is a culture, if I have to, there is a culture in a few states and few communities that when they get married, okay, so the bride's parents should gift certain things to the groom, okay. Now that it is nothing but dowry. Now that is done in such a way, to such an extent that it is displayed. They put up a stage in the marriage hall where the entire whatever they've given is displayed. What do they give? They give everything: sofa, washing machine, fridge, microwave, TV. All entire house will be given as a dowry there, from a spoon to everything. And that is displayed, and it is put up to in such a manner that it is a show off that this much of money we're spending, this much of dowry we are giving, this much of dowry we are receiving. Yeah, this much of dowry we are receiving, so that the others will they gave so much, their family, their relatives, they gave so much dowry. This particular bride was given so much dowry. We also expect.
Can you tell us about some incidents that have happened recently about dowry deaths?
Very recently, I think a day before or something, if I'm not wrong, in Kerala, very recently in Kerala, a pregnant woman was found dead. It was burnt and found dead. A pregnant woman.
She burned herself.
Yes.
She was feeling.
Because she was suffocated in the marriage, and she was subject to harassment due to dowry. Okay. And a few months ago, there was another case in Tamil Nadu where it is very. Now, you take. We'll talk about this later. Yes. But you take. Now, in this case, what happened? They are very rich people. Very rich people. They spent crores on the wedding. They had demanded a particular car. They wanted that particular car worth rupees 80 lakhs. They had given that exact car what was asked for. They had given 4 kgs of gold. Can you imagine? 4 kgs of gold. Okay? And the agreement was 6 kgs of gold to be given.
That's why.
Okay? Now, 4 kgs of gold is given. Okay, now after the marriage, 2 kgs was not given yet. So now that poor girl, was subject to so much torture, and emotional abuse was there to such an extent, every day, constant taunting, verbal and emotional abuse, that she committed suicide within a month of marriage. Within a month of marriage. She left her father voice messages that she can't take it anymore and she doesn't want to, Now the woman is in such a, mentally, she is trained in such a way that if she gets a divorce, it is a social stigma.
It's her fault that the marriage failed.
Now, because of that, she couldn't bear it and she committed suicide. Telling that I don't want to, ruin your reputation out there. The father's reputation could not be ruined. It would have been ruined if she took a divorce. She committed suicide. You're talking about, they're all educated, all settled people. Financially, economically, academically, educated, all of them. And they're still harassing women to this extent.
Even if they are educated, why are they aren't going legally?
Why are women taking legal steps to?
If she had approached the court, she could have got it. If you look at it, more than half of them do not take any legal action for this. Okay, more than half of the women, they do not approach. Okay, how do you find a solution for this? They're stuck because one is societal norms. They can never go back. Okay. Second, if nowadays it is better if you go back to the older days, okay?
Yes.
Not even 90s, go back to way older days. Now,
Around
once,
for a long
yeah,
time.
now in that days, once the daughter is married off, she can't come back.
She's no longer the
She's
responsibility.
she's no longer the responsibility of the house. Okay? She has nowhere to go now. So she has to stay in that abusive marriage regardless because she'll be shelterless. How
Either
will
she
and
have to
back
live
then,
with them or she should die.
yes, only two options. Either she has to be there or die. Very, it is one of the recent cases where both of them were doctors.
Yes,
The
ma'am.
husband as well as the wife were doctors. Okay, the husband killed the wife so in such a way it was a murder that he had inserted IV in her foot so that nobody would know. Get to
Yes,
know.
ma'am.
He killed her in her sleep.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and when asked for a post-mortem, he had brainwashed the parents of the woman of the wife that they were not supposed to ask for a post-mortem. He had brainwashed them to such an extent. The wife's sister, who was also a doctor, came from abroad, and then she, insisted so much that a postmortem has to take place. Then they found out it was a murder. Both of them are doctors. What was the necessity? Now that was complete. He killed a person.
Yes, ma'am.
Educated people are doing this.
Often say that education and finance can help bring these women up and help them come out of their abusive marriages. So, what is your take on this?
See, when you talk about, of course, economically being stronger, will definitely help women to stand up against violence. That is absolutely true. I agree. Even education as well. So with education, you become economically strong. Yes, that is it. Financial independence. You gain it with education. Regardless of education, economic independence is a you gain it in so many ways. If you see women go to garment work, garments, they do all these tailoring works at home just to be financially stable and independent. Okay, because uh, the culture is in such a way that women are not supposed to handle any finances of the house. It is the men know better. That is how the cultural norm has been gone down from those days. Okay? But see, there is both ways. One, if the woman is educated very well, the husband feels inferior to her. Now, with that also abuse starts.
What are the provisions under Indian law that these poor helpless women can access?
Now there is one is of course the Dowry Prohibition Act of 2005 is there, and domestic violence prohibition against domestic violence, protection against domestic violence act is also there. So all of this they give basically they give out judicial their protection officers. They give them helplines to reach out in case of domestic abuse. All of that. There are something called Asha Karyakartas
Yes, ma'am.
here. So they're given all of these. There are institutions where the abused women can go take shelter homes.
Yes, ma'am.
It's there. There is a helpline where you can reach out. But to what extent are women reaching out? So the problem is reaching out.
Yes, ma'am.
They're in such a societal pressure they can't even reach out to ask for help. It's because they're living for the society. All they're doing is living for the society. So this protection is there. Definitely protection is there. Under BNS, IPC section 498A, dowry prohibition is there. Even in BNS, there is a lot of provisions for forcing a woman to miscarry, marital rape, then coercing a woman into marriage, forceful marriage. There are a lot of provisions under all of these. So regardless of that, there is cruelty against marriage. There are provisions. Section 85, 63 of BNS, section 80 of BNS. All of these are there. But how are they helping? Section 87 basically talks about coercion of women into marriage. Now it is an offence where it is a punishable offence. Okay. Now again, when you talk about forcing a women to go through a miscarriage. Okay, even there, if it causes death of such women, then it is punishable with imprisonment. Okay, or if it is if the a lot of women are pushed into miscarriage without them knowing, without their consent, without the consent of the women, they um, force them into miscarriage because of the gender. So in such a case, it is an offence where it is punishable with imprisonment for um, life.
Ma'am, you mentioned marital rape. Is it punishable in India?
Marital rape as of now is a dynamic topic that's being discussed in our country. But according to the BNS, Section 67 says that rape when the couple are living separately, when the couple are judicially separated, when there is a court order that they're judicially separated, judicial separation, and they're living apart, there's a decree of separation. Okay, and in such case, if the wife is subjected to not rape for sexual intercourse at that time, then it is considered rape. When they're living apart, if they have a judicial decree passed by the court for separation, and they still, if the wife is subjected to it, it is considered as it is a punishable offence for at least not less than 2 years, which may extend up to 7 years, along with fine.
You mentioned that it is rape when they are living separately. What if they are living in the same household?
See, that is what is the discussion is going on. It is supposed to be considered a rape, but now what? It's a very controversial topic that is going on right now, marital rape. So better we don't get into it. But the thing is, they consider it to be consensual regardless of it. They're married, they're living together. So the entire concept of marriage is procreation. So they say this includes a non. So you can't consider a man having, a man being in a sexual relationship with his own wife is not rape. That is what they say, regardless of consent. So now that is the entire discussion going on, that marital rape should be a punishable offence without consent. You cannot, regardless of you're married or not.
But the survey mentions that less than 1% of domestic violence cases are actually reported.
So when you can't be vocal about it, it is a social stigma, and your reputation is at stake. About everything they consider the social reputation, their social status.
Even in Assam, there was a case where a woman had to travel to paddy fields barefoot with her child because she was being mistreated at her marriage home. She had to run away from that house to her parents' place to escape such.
See, now one thing that happens here is one, women taking courage to do that. Second is support from your family, from the women's family, from the maiden family to be given. In most of the cases, they consider it a social stigma that the reputation will be ruined, their social status is ruined because the daughter came back. For that, they're scared to give the support in the first place. One. Second, the women themselves think inferiorly that if they go back to their maiden house, they will be subjected to disrespect.
Let's move to gender-based violence. What forms can we observe this gender-based violence?
Of course, rape, of course, gender-based crimes, rape, harassment in workplace, Posh Act. Yes, Posh. I think that domestic violence, of course, it is gender-based, completely gender-based. It is totally interrelated. You can't separate this gender-based violence apart from domestic violence. It is completely entangled with it. Okay. If we have to talk about rape, of course, men are also subject to domestic violence. It is true. Men are subject to domestic violence.
Yes, ma'am.
It is not untrue. They do go through
A lot of pressure.
a lot of pressure. First is emotional pressure,
Yes, ma'am.
because they'll have to choose between the wife and the family.
Yes, ma'am.
They'll subject them to emotional abuse. That is also there. That also exists. This physical abuse is also there against men.
Yes, ma'am.
All of this is there. Even rape. What happened in Nirvaya's case?
Yes, ma'am. That was a very brutal.
Now if you have seen the interview of the offenders,
They said
of
that
the
they
accused,
did. Yes,
the
ma'am.
accused people, there was a video interviews of them where they said that women are supposed to be put in their places. That is what one of the rapists said. Women, who gave the permission for the women to walk out, to be outside the house after sunset? After it gets dark, women are not supposed to be out. That is what the rapist stated.
That is the mentality that leads
That
to.
is the mentality they are being brought up with. Women are not supposed to step out of the house. She was wearing short clothes. She was wearing modern clothes. Now the entire generationally everything has to be changed. I don't know how. That is not I think it can take more than centuries of time for that to change. Especially in our societal norms, it's impossible. Yes, but we are walking towards progress day by day. Now the laws are more stringent after the updating, after the criminal law got updated from IPC to DNS. The punishment is more stringent, more punitive. So let's hope that we take more baby steps into the progress and hope that women are given with more empowerment and support to come out of their violent, suffocating marriages and violent marriages. They can approach and they can seek help and stand up against violence and stand up for themselves. If not against violence, stand up for themselves. Hope that we reach a point where we can support women to stand up for themselves.
What are the gaps that you can notice in today's legislation in supporting these women that are trying to come out of their marriages or these sufferings?
See, laws. See, now, like you said, with that instance in COVID time, when a woman came, the police officer denied her help. That is where the foundation level only is. That is an entire loophole. It is dead. So there are a lot of loopholes. See, once they say they'll get protection, but to what extent will they get shelter, identity? They'll actually have to take them into a safe place where nobody can find them. That is how it is supposed to work. But to what extent does it work in India? Somebody knows somebody will find them. Everybody, it is in such a way influence works. Somebody knows somebody and they'll bring them back. Or they'll try to kill them to suppress their voice. Because their reputation is at stake. And see, for the entire thing, for the legal thing, there are laws. We have laws since 1961. We're talking about dowry prohibition. We're telling no to dowry since 1961. Has it stopped? Just imagine how many loopholes are there. They say it is not dowry, it is gift.
For the happiness of the
Daughter. Now the happiness of the daughter is depending on the amount of gift you give. Means what?
How stable is the
How stable is the marriage? So now, how stable is the woman's security after the daughter getting married? How stable is her security? So if the lesser gift you give, the more abuse you're subject to. Look at the loophole. So everything starts with the mentality. The entire thing has to start from at your home. Changing your mentality towards progress.
Thank you for your information.
It
ma'am.
was
Thank
wonderful
you
discussing
for-
about it's a very dynamic topic. It's quite one of the important topics of society to be discussed. I was happy to be a part of it.
Thank you very much, ma'am.